Hi, friends. I wanted to talk about the stage of defiance today. Now, mostly when the children are developing, typically neurotypical children, when they develop, they are running, okay, before the age of 1, the child is learning to roll over, then hold their head in place, then they're learning to crawl, they're learning to kneel, stand. So there are a lot of motor milestones that the child is achieving. Along with those motor milestones, the child is also learning confidence, and he's learning to move away from gravity, to he's not pulled down by gravity. So that is what is happening. Now, by the time the child is like 1.5 years of age, so around 18 months of age till 2 years of age, you would see that they've developed a lot of not only horizontally, that they have tried to manipulate environment, but even vertically. So they want to climb up, they want to climb down, they want to jump from surfaces. So these are the kinds of things that a child is doing by till around 18 months of age. Now, what happens is this kind of movement or this kind of sensory motor play that the child is doing is called by Dr. Jean Ayers, who's the founder or originator of sensory integration therapy. She says this is the raw material which is needed, which is really needed, so that the child learns to learn. So if I really want a child to learn reading, writing, or whatever the literacy skills or the numeracy skills that I want the child to learn, then the prerequisite is that the child has mastered the environment and he's in control of his body. He can move his body and manipulate and be more in control. Now, the more he's able to manipulate the environment, the more he can jump when he wants to, climb where he wants to, he gains a sense of self, a sense of confidence. And so, typically, between 18 to 24 months of age, you will see that sense of selfhood developing, where the child's image, self esteem goes up. And there's this thing called a stage of defiance, which we see in kids. Now, when I say stage of defiance, we can also call it as a stage of expressing individuality, or a stage where the child is becoming more autonomous. He feels that it is, I choose, I decide. So there's a lot of there's a development of ego that starts happening between 18 to 24 months of age. When you see this kind of a thing, you would see that these kids, we call them terrible twos, so they have a lot of no for everything. I remember one child who came to me at my therapy center, and I had this cupboard full of toys, and I usually encourage kids to play and take what they want to take. So this little 4-year-old or 5-year-old boy, I told him, do you want to take the Spider-Man from my cupboard? Because the last time that he came, he took the Spider-Man, and he's like, no. I said, okay, so what do you want to take? Take what you want to. And he says, I want Spider-Man. So I was shocked when he said that on that particular day, but then it really, that child really helped me understand that only when we learn to say a no, then it is that we learn the value and the importance of saying a yes to somebody, So this is the stage of defiance, which or terrible twos, which people typically refer to, or it is also called as a stage of developing their own individuality. They become more assertive, they become more typically parents tell me that my child becomes very stubborn, he's not listening, he used to listen earlier. So that's the stage that every child in normal development will pass through. If you also read Erik Erikson's stage of psychosocial development, this is one of the stage through which the child would go through. Now, if a child has any kind of a developmentally deviant behavior, or I would say the child did not develop neurotypically and there is neurodiversity, the child has a diagnosis of ADHD or cerebral palsy or autism or something because of which he could not master the environment and the control over the environment as much as he should have, like how any other child would, then they do not pass through this stage of defiance and they stay in a symbiotic relationship with their parents or caregivers. Now, this is something that I've referred to in my book. There's this entire chapter which is devoted to this, and it's called A Stage of Defiance. And it's very important for me to specify and explain on this particular front, because many a times when parents come to me and they start therapies with me, they say, you know what, ma'am, we see that a child is understanding more, but he's not listening nowadays and he's become very stubborn. So they see that as a problem behavior, but then I see it as a very positive thing, because a child who did not ever express what he wanted or who was always very compliant now is learning to realize that he has something within him and he has the power to express that he doesn't want something. So there's a lot of no behavior that starts coming up when we start doing sensory integration, or when we start doing primitive reflex integration work. It could be any of those, and this is something that is very important. Now, what happens typically is when a child says no, it is, we as parents feel a little, like, how can my child say no to me, that kind. But the child is not trying to enter into a power struggle, he's just trying to understand that he is someone, and he's trying to recognize and give himself or herself the importance that he deserves. His opinions, I wouldn't say herself, the opinions that matter. So at this stage, it's very important when the child is defined, instead of entering into a power struggle and, like, why you're doing this, you should be doing that. If I see that and support the child, because, at 2 years of age, or like if I see it in neurotypical development till 2 years of age, the child hasn't developed. He needs a lot of support, he needs a lot of encouragement from his parents. And whatever age that a child who's neurodiverse goes through these behaviors, it could be at 5, it could be at 6, it could be 7, we don't know when. But if he's going through this phase, then instead of seeing this as a behavior problem, or he's not listening, he's become more stubborn, I try to understand that, oh, my child is now learning. He is developing a sense of individuality. He is becoming more assertive. So that is something very important. In my book, I have written this important part that's very important, and it says that it is important to note, if the breathing space is not given at this stage, children feel suffocated and they have more tantrums. But it is important to be aware that if we are distracted as caregivers, when they need help, they feel disoriented and overwhelmed. This is the time that the child is also learning to be aware of his feelings. And it's very important at this point of time, when we help them understand what they're feeling. We tell them, see, you're getting so angry. Oh, see, you are now getting restless. Oh, see, you are hungry, so you're getting irritable, whatever. So this is the stage when the child is learning to become aware of his emotions also. So though he may appear as if, he's telling us, don't do this, I'll do it by myself, child wants to be more independent, because the more independently and the more what you say, on his own, the more he tries to do things, he feels that sense of achievement, and that's amazing. But whenever the child needs a help, and most of the times at such a stage, the child needs a help most. So it's important that we be there and we help the child understand and name the emotions that he's feeling, and teach the child to deal with those emotions, rather than get into this, yeah, rather than to think that, oh, it's just a behavior problem. It could be that he's becoming more assertive. We need to be setting limits, we need to use rewards, and sometimes we may have to use timeouts, very true. But then what I'm only trying to convey is, we need to understand and celebrate, wow, my child is going through a stage of defiance. Just yesterday I was talking to one parent, and it was a class, and I was asking for feedback on what has changed in their lives, in the last 1 week. And one parent told me very beautifully, and all of us were in tears, because this boy has a diagnosis of autism and he's never asked for anything from his mom. He would take whatever is given, he would wear whatever was given. He didn't have his voice, he did not express what he wanted to express. And the parent has started working at home and she's been doing, and this boy is around 7 to 8 years of age and it's quite old. So he didn't pass through that stage of defiance. Now he's like no to everything and he's becoming more assertive. And so the mother's dad called her up and said, today while coming back home, just buy a teddy bear because your child wants a teddy bear and he's been asking for the teddy bear since morning. So, and the parent was like excited. She was like, wow, why not? I would buy it for him. He's never ever asked me for what he wants, and this is the first time he's doing it. So she was really excited. She also told me that he, earlier he would wear whatever that was given. Now he would take out that shirt, any shirt he would take out, wear it, and look at himself in the mirror. That's another amazing achievement. And now he also specifies, I want a green t-shirt. And the parent says, we don't have a green t-shirt. But she is like, wow, he's asking. He's developing a choice. And at such a stage, it's really important that we give choice. We give that little bit of freedom that they demand while balancing to ensure that it's not getting into that zone where he is always asking for he wants and he always gets what he wants. So this is a very important stage of development. And also, okay, so many a times when a child is also going through a defined stage, you may also find a lot of work happening in dreams, which means because a lot of integration, a lot of changes are also happening. So there'll be a lot of dreams that children are seeing. There are a lot of nightmares sometimes, or a lot of stuff that's happening. So what I'm only trying to convey is if your child wakes up, after a lot of therapies you've done, like usually when I work with kids, if I'm doing a lot of primitive reflex integration work, I do see this stage coming like within 3 weeks or so. And with kids where I'm doing only sensory integration, I see it coming by the second or fourth month, where they become very, I wouldn't call them stubborn, where they find their voice and they learn to express it out. And that's something that we want them to do. So that's the stage of defiance. In this book, Movements That Heal by Dr. Harold Bloomberg, he speaks that emotional and physical reactions and dreams occur in people when we work on their primitive reflex integration. When we do that, it causes the nerve nets of the limbic system to develop and link up more efficiently. Limbic system is the system where our emotions are processed. And these processes can cause changes in emotional responses, behavior, and even hormonal imbalance. And it is very natural for a child to go through these periods of defiance. They become more demanding. They may become more babyish. They want to start hanging around their mother, wanting to sit on their lap. So a very old child may want more of that mother's or the caregiver's love. I had another mother who I was speaking to yesterday only in that same class, and this parent told me that, he was never bothered by the mother being there, not being there. And now that we've started working on the child, it seems that she was washing clothes and he wanted to be there around, washing those small little handkerchiefs with her, and she felt so good that, my son wants to be with me. He doesn't want to be just into his own space. So, what I'm trying to tell you is this is something that may start happening. They may become more demanding, they become more babyish, they want to start hanging around their mother, wanting to sit on their lap. Some kids become very afraid to sleep alone. Some have horrible dreams or nightmares. Some have difficulties falling asleep. In rare cases, there are kids who may have meltdowns. They may want more attention and support that the parents are used to giving them. And this is especially true for the children who did not go through the defiant stage. So this is something that I wanted to share because parents get scared and they're like, we started exercises and these are the things that are coming up. It's a good thing, but we do not want to disorganize the child. So if you're following a program with me and if you see these things happening, slow down. If you're doing some exercises 5 days a week, slow down to twice a week. If you still see those concerns, slow down to once a week. If you still see them, I would want you to definitely email me if you're working with me. And if you're not working with me, just slow down. Go slow. your child, usually kids get better. I see this. So after Dr. Harold Bloomberg describes the periods of defiance are succeeded by periods of emotional development when children become more confident, they are calmer, happier, and independent, and their impulsive behavior starts to reduce. So this is typically something that happens with most kids who have not gone through that terrible twos period. It may happen that a child may go through this phase. I wouldn't say may, child will go through this phase because that's important for the child to develop. So if your child is going through this phase, it's okay, don't worry, just relax, stop the exercises, and things will settle down. You can email me, I can definitely guide you on what needs to be done. But I thought this video was important so that you know that a child does go through a stage of developing assertiveness, individuality, and that's something to be celebrated. It's amazing. If you've not read my book, here's my book. I would really encourage you to read my book because I've explained each of these things in details. Do read about it so that you can feel more empowered. You understand why behaviors are happening, what we need to do for those behaviors. Thank you so much